Good morning, everyone. Brian here with BMK Retro Gaming. This morning I have for us the review of the Atari VCS 2600 original library game, Double Dragon. Now, it is an arcade port, with the arcade cabinet original having been developed by with directors Yoshi Haishisa, I guess, Kishimoto and Shinichi Sato, forgive me if I slur that name, with developers working on programming Hiroshi Sato, Tomoyasu Koga, Nari Nishimura, Hideki Kaneda, and art by Kazunaka Yamane. I think I pronounced all that right, but I'm not sure. For Technos Japan in 1989. As we all know, it was a pretty popular arcade cabinet original. Pretty much not quite the absolute first in the genre of martial arts style beat-em-ups, but one of the early ones. And it was very popular. It had a number of ports to both home video game consoles and also to home computers, and was technically the first in its particular franchise, which lasted a good while. I don't think they've re-released anything or anything else in that one for a while, but who knows. Anyway, Daniel Kitchen developed this Atari VCS 2600 arcade port, original library arcade port, for Activision in 1989. And although it does have its drawbacks and is not the best regarded game by any measure, in some of its own ways it is fairly impressive that it could even be done like this on the Atari VCS 2600. Anyway, I don't really have a manual for it, so I had to write down some instructions here. Basically, you play in one-player mode as Billy Lee, and in two-player, the second player would be his brother Jimmy Lee, and you're out to rescue from Billy's girlfriend from the Black Dragon Gang, I believe it is, which has kidnapped her. And it's not super long, not by today's standards, but it was a fairly long game in its own right for the day, and very good. And well, although, you know, like, this is probably usually by most considered the least well regarded of the arcade ports to home video game consoles, there are some of the home computer ports I'm aware of which are even less well regarded than this one, so there's that. Anyway, your basic moves in game is you press left or right and your button to punch. For an elbow punch, you press the button either left or right diagonal, and it will do the opposite direction behind you while pressing the button in an elbow punch. For a standard kick, you press either left or right while pressing down, depending on which way you're trying to go. And a jump kick, you press up while pressing the button and the direction you want to go. The game also includes about 3 weapon types, not quite as thorough as the arcade cabinet original, but pretty okay for what it is. Those are the bat, you know, like a baseball bat, oil drum, and knife. Now, scoring-wise, it all depends on whether or not you connect with the martial arts moves you use as attacks or not, or whether they miss. When you connect, a punch is worth 50 points, a kick is worth 100 points, a jump kick is also worth 100 points, an elbow is worth 180 points, and with the weapons, once you get far enough to be able to get your hands on some of them, a connecting hit with the bat is worth 200 points, and an oil drum is worth 200 points to connect with, and the knife is worth 500, which some might say, well, why is the knife worth a lot more? Well, it's not just a stabbing attack or anything, you're throwing the knife at the enemy, so that would be a little bit harder to connect with. You'd have to make sure you've got pretty good precision on it. So anyway, that's the basics of it. It also has 3 basic gameplay modes. The game 1 is a single-player gameplay mode. Gameplay Mode 2 is the cooperative two-player gameplay with both Billy and Jimmy. And Gameplay 3 is just a one-on-one match between Billy and Jimmy against each other, which is actually a pretty good mode if you want to practice up using your martial arts skills for the game some. Now, I have my loose copy, which is what I ordered. I believe the seller was off of Amazon.com, though I don't remember exactly, so don't quote me. And it's a pretty common game, not too terribly hard to find, really. My copy, it came in this little protective case, which is a nice touch. Opened it up and got out. A little flap can sometimes get stuck, but it's okay. Let's see, what does that say? Big Time Gamers. Okay. Sure you guys can read and see that, but yeah, it says Big Time Gamers. And here we go. It says Activision. Mine has a little bit of crease here in the label, I guess, but it's not bad. The label isn't coming off or anything. A little worn here on the top part, but not too bad. It says Double Dragon on top. On the main part, we have Activision for the Atari 2600. Use joystick controllers for 1 or 2 players. Tells it acknowledges it's from Tecmos Japan Corporation. And all that, so yeah, pretty good. And of course we have Activision on the back. And the kind of styled handle here that Activision put on most of their carts. Now, I'm going to play with my HyperCam Retron 77 emulation hardware clone console, which for those who do use one of these, it does work with, which is a bit unusual because if we look inside, I forget if it's for just music or what, but there's some extra chips here, and usually the HyperCam Retron 77 emulation hardware clone console doesn't like to play cartridges that have that type of thing. For instance, say Pitfall 2, The Lost Caverns, I believe it is. But anyway, with this one it does. It mostly likes to play 4K cartridges, which standard game ROM size back in the day. But this one it does, for whatever reason. I don't know if it's my firmware update installed on it being a bit higher or what. But it does very well play the this one, so. And of course, if you just have it by a game ROM, you know, as a digital download, you can play it that way with it too, no problem, so. Now I'm going to use my HyperCam Ranger controller here, which is the one that's kind of like it has paddle functionality and is kind of like a joypad or gamepad with 1 button and an 8-way directional mini joystick or mini thumbstick joystick. Which, since this is just a 1-button game like pretty much every other Atari VCS 2600 original library game from back in the day, that works fine. The reason I'm going to do it this way is, with some of the ways you have to do the martial arts moves, as I was just describing, it can be a bit tricky when using a regular Atari VCS 2600 joystick controller with the joystick. This, on the other hand, makes it more compact and a bit easier for me to get it to do what I want to do, so. Kind of makes more sense. In fact, if you happen to own one of these and are trying to play this one, pretty good bet on it. Anyway, I'm going to get this plugged in with my HyperCam Retron 77 emulation hardware clone console, and we're going to take a look at the gameplay. Okay, so here we go with gameplay for Double Dragon Atari VCS 2600 original library arcade port. HyperCam Retron 77 on. There we go. Whatever. I'm not going to argue with this thing about that right now. Probably just a little hiccup there. Usually it works just fine, you know. Here it goes. Okay, there we go. Here's this little hiccup. Okay, put the cartridge in and it will go ahead and load pretty quick. Typically. No. Game 1, okay. Now one thing about this one is the enemies, when they show up, usually stick to, they only attack at one time. I guess probably a product of the fact that the Atari VCS 2600 typically only had 2 enemies that could be supported on screen at once. And one will attack you at one time while the other one just hangs back and waits. There's one down. By the way, you get about 3 lives to defeat them with, so one thing we can say about the game right off the bat is it's pretty difficult. It also is nice because unlike other Atari VCS 2600 original library games, this one does have a musical score playing throughout, which you didn't get with many others. It is pretty colorful, although, as my friend and fellow YouTuber content creator Phil with his channel No Square Gamer has described it on his review of this one, it kind of looks with that blue like Billy might as well be said to be wearing a hat or something. Which I don't think he's supposed to be, but, whatever. Darn you. And had to put me right there, turned around right with my back to him right when I respawned, so that wasn't very nice of this thing. Okay, next. Ah yes, the next enemy, what he's holding there is a baseball bat. Which I can potentially pick up and use against him, but he doesn't give you much of a chance. The enemies here are pretty aggressive, so you don't get much of a chance to, you either manage to beat them or you don't. That's one of the big drawbacks here is the, okay, here's the third set of enemies, which, I hardly ever get past the first 2, really. Darn, and there we go. That's over. See, it's pretty high difficulty. One of the things here is, with the 1 button, 1 joystick controller, that you got for your Atari VCS 2600, with the standard joystick controller, for all these martial arts moves you have for attacks, that's kind of a more or less convoluted, scheme for your controls to have to work with. So that's one of the problems I see, with one of the others being, that, you tend to have, well, with the enemies, the difficulty level is rather high with them. They are relentless. And, well, like I said, it's colorful, it has music playing, and it is playable, just, the difficulty level is ramped up pretty dadgum high. So that's one of the big problems with it. One of the things, we see like ladders here in the background, but unfortunately on this one you don't have the ability to actually climb them, so it's just for looks. On many of the other ports you can, so. Okay, game 2 here. Now this is kind of interesting to me because the one in red is supposed to be Jimmy, the other brother. Of course, I don't have a second player to play with him, so not very helpful anyway. And also, it does it in a kind of split-screen thing. Jimmy is the one, he's restricted to being down there, whereas I am restricted to being up top, so there's no way to fight cooperatively. Here we go, I'm controlling Jimmy now. I switched my controller ports. So, some others may be familiar, even more familiar with the 3rd generation Nintendo NES arcade port of this game, which, that's about as much as I want to do on that one right there. The thing about it is that, it also has a 2-player gameplay mode, but on it's turn-based, where one of you either has to get through the level or fail to, and then the other takes their turn. Whereas this one, as we can see, it's cooperative, which, although maybe not in terms of The music's pretty similar in a way to what we would get from the arcade cabinet original. In a way, I mean, it's a rendition of it, though not 100% accurate. But, also, you know, the arcade cabinet original had two-player cooperative gameplay mode instead of being just a single-player, or a turn-based gameplay mode, so you could play like this, where you had the ability to play with a second player if you wanted to, so that was kind of interesting. So although the sound and graphical look is not 100% or even close to that arcade accurate, it does have that two-player cooperative gameplay mode, which makes it a little bit more arcade accurate in that respect. Ironically enough, even more arcade accurate than the in that respect than the third generation Nintendo NES port. There we go, that's him down. And they're going to give me another. One thing I've noticed with this one is you're probably better off for the, on average, trying to use your ranged attacks like your kicks and stuff, as opposed to trying to get through all this. Your punch just doesn't have a very, very long range. That's the problem with a lot of the martial arts moves you have here is the controls unfortunately leave you with only okay, your punch has maybe about a 1 pixel's worth of range, whereas your standard kick maybe has about somewhere around 2 to 3. Your elbow has between a half pixel and elbow punch has between a half pixel and pixels worth of range. Your standard kick has maybe about 3 pixels worth of range to 4. And your jump kick has maybe about what we could say is around a maybe 4 to 6 pixels worth of range. So they're kind of short in terms of, you know, you don't get enough of a range with them to really keep these idiots at bay by very much, so. Ooh, I actually got through that, and I hardly ever do that. Got her. And of course with Jimmy I'm getting a bit more of a higher point total, but that's partly because I'm actually able to fight with him to a point where I'm actually able to win some. Not that he's really all that different from Billy anyway. Okay. And I actually cleared level 1 and I'm on mission 2 with Jimmy, which is weird. I've never been this far. See, the thing about this game is it's very difficult and can be very frustrating to try to play through, but at the same time, it is possible. As a matter of fact, my friend and fellow YouTuber content creator Phil with his channel, Lino Square Gamer, actually got through, I think, a good portion of level 2 or into level 3 before he lost it. But he excels at playing most games, as I know him to do. Now we're going to take a look into Game 3, which is the last one I was talking about, where it's the two of them against each other. It gives you a bat to try and grab right off the bat, so why not? Of course, I can't control both, so we're just going to do this. This is a good way to practice your skill at the game, even if you don't have a second player. There's game over there with me having earned 1,200 points for it. Anyway, I think you guys kind of get the idea with the gameplay, so I will go ahead and wrap that part of it up. Okay, so that was Double Dragon, a 1989 arcade port for the Atari VCS 2600. Is it pretty good? Well, as I've been saying all along, it's not terribly well regarded, generally speaking, probably the least regarded home video game console port of this game. However, I'm not going to say it's necessarily a bad game, though I won't say it's necessarily a good one. What I will do is point out the positives, as I've been trying to do, which are that it is colorful and looks pretty decent. Secondly, sound-wise, it has music playing throughout, which is a fairly reminiscent of the Arcade Cabinet Original's musical score, so not too bad on that. And although very, very difficult with enemies which are way too aggressive and all, it is entirely possible to play through and win or beat the game. As I was saying, my friend and preferred YouTuber, Phil, with his channel, No Score Gamer, got through, I believe, a good portion of level 2, if not some of level 3, Mission 2, Mission 3 as they call it. And although it's been a while since I looked this up, and this guy among my preferred YouTubers, so I can't tell you who it is, there's this guy in there who recommends learning how to utilize your elbow punch and as one of his tricks to getting through it, and he actually manages to win to beat the game. So, it is entirely possible to do that. And to me, a truly broken game, as some have called this one, is more or less one where you couldn't beat or finish the game. An example might be for the Atari 7800 Impossible Mission, wherein I forget if it's that you just can't find a number of items or so that you need to complete everything, or if there's some areas you can't manage to actually gain access to, so you can't finish the game and beat it. This one, you have to rack your nerves and practice like crazy on it, but it has been demonstrated you can beat this one. So to me, it's not a broken game in that respect, or you couldn't beat it if you really wanted to and tried hard enough for long enough. It's just a very difficult one that was programmed. I think Daniel Kitchen did a pretty good job with it. It's impressive for a lot of this we wouldn't have seen with earlier Atari VCS 2600 original library games, so in a way it is kind of impressive that it was done at all. And quite honestly, it probably sold a lot on the strength of, ooh, Double Dragon. I know that arcade game. This is going to be a real fun game. That's probably what sold a lot of this back in the day, is, just the name recognition alone. Whereas who knows how many actually got returned or given away to friends or what. By the way, the game is not necessarily all bad, though it's not necessarily good either. It's kind of mediocre. It's down there where it's a bit above being bad, but still ways away from being terribly good. In any case, that's a lot of the good points, and like I said, as opposed to some other ports like the Nintendo NES, third generation Nintendo NES port, this one is more arcade cabinet original, like the arcade it's more arcade accurate, like the arcade cabinet original, in terms of, instead of like the third generation Nintendo NES port having turn-based two-player gameplay, whereas the arcade cabinet original had cooperative two-player gameplay. Well, this one also has two-player cooperative gameplay, so it is more arcade accurate in that respect. And let's be honest here, any port of this game and the arcade cabinet original are very difficult games. None of them are a cakewalk. This one ramps it up to another notch in a way, or to another level, but still no port of the game Double Dragon, the arcade cabinet original whatsoever, is an easy game, so that kind of makes sense that it's pretty difficult, though it's just a little bit too much on this one in many ways. So yeah, I would say it's not quite a good game, not quite a bad game, and I'd say it is worth checking out if you get a chance to try it out. It's a pretty nice game in some ways, though, again, one that's very tough. I do have a few recommendations and links for you guys from my preferred YouTubers. High Retro Game Lord, Phil with his channel The No Square Gamer, and Friday Night Arcade all have some nice videos featuring this one as well, so I will leave recommendations and links to those for you to check out if you like. As well as I will leave a link to the Wikipedia article on this one. As a matter of fact, there's an interesting fun fact in this one. It goes over the arcade cabinet original and the ports. It's a pretty detailed article. And one thing it tells you is, one thing that might surprise some, despite how this game has been perceived, or this port of the game anyway, the Atari VCS 2600 arcade port of Double Dragon originally sold about 500,000 copies, about 500,000 copies. So don't know how many might got returned or given away, but that's pretty good sales. And again, I would imagine probably a lot of that was due to the name recognition as much as anything else. And who knows, like I said, like that one guy I was talking about watching, he manages to beat the game, and I'm sure he's not the only one who could figure out how to do that. So anyway, I will leave links to all those for you guys, so you can check them out if you'd like. Go ahead and keep your eyes peeled and on the feed for this channel, both here on YouTube as well as on my Facebook and Twitter feeds, if you follow me there. Because for what I know, it'll be another emulation, another emulated game ROM, but I have not quite picked out what this coming Sunday's Homebrew Probrew or prototype review is going to be yet. I will get that done and I will announce it with plenty of time to spare, so just keep your eyes open for that announcement post to come down. Big shout out to my Atari 2600 Facebook group. Love you guys over there, and hopefully, it's been a bit rainy here, but hopefully this video upload will become available and y'all will get it before too terribly long. In the meantime, if you enjoy this channel's content, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and please don't hesitate to leave any questions, comments, or suggestions down in the comments section below. You guys take care, have a wonderful Wednesday, and hopefully I will see everyone back here again this coming Sunday.